Medieval India, Chapter number 13, Part 2. Early Phase, Contest with the Nobility, 1556 to 67. Behram Khan remained at the helm of affairs of the empire for almost 4 years. During the period, he kept nobility fully under control. The danger to Kabul was averted and the territories of the empire were extended from Kabul up to Jaunpur in the east and Ajmer in the west. Gwalior was captured and the forces sent to conquer Ranthambore and Malwa. Meanwhile, Akbar was approaching the age of maturity. Behram Khan had offended many powerful persons while he held supreme power. They complained that Behram Khan was a Shia and that he was appointing his own supporters and Shias to high offices while neglecting the old nobles. These charges were not very serious in themselves, but Behram Khan had become arrogant and failed to realize that Akbar was growing. There was a friction on small points which made Akbar realize that he could not leave the affairs of the state in someone else's hands for any length of time. Akbar played his cards deftly. He left Agra on the pretext of hunting and reached Delhi. From Delhi, he issued a farman dismissing Behram Khan from his office and calling upon all nobles to come and submit to him personally. Once Behram Khan realized that Akbar wanted to take power in his own hands, he was prepared to submit, but his opponents were keen to ruin him. They heaped humiliation upon him until he was goaded to rebel. The rebellion distracted the empire for almost 6 months. Finally, Behram Khan was forced to submit. Akbar received him cordially and gave him the option of serving at the court or anywhere outside it, or retiring to Mecca. Behram Khan chose to go to Mecca. However, on his way, he was assassinated at Patan near Ahmedabad by an Afghan who bore him a personal grudge. Behram's wife and young child were brought to Akbar at Agra. Akbar married Behram Khan's widow, who was his cousin, and brought up the child as his own son. This child later became famous as Abdur Rahim Khan-e-Khanan and held some of the most important offices and commands in the empire. Akbar's confrontation with Behram Khan and the treatment accorded to his family subsequently show some typical traits of Akbar's character. He was unrelenting once he had made up his mind about a course of action, but was prepared to go out of his way in being generous to an opponent who had submitted to him. During Behram Khan's rebellion, group of individuals in the nobility had become politically active. They included Akbar's foster mother, Maham Anag, and her relations. Though Maham Anag soon withdrew from politics, her son Adham Khan was an impetuous young man who assumed independent airs when sent to command an expedition against Malwa. Removed from the command, he laid claim to the post of the Wazir, and when this was not conceded, he stabbed the acting Wazir in the office. Akbar was enraged and had him thrown down from the parapet of the fort so that he died in 1561. However, it was many years before Akbar that to establish his authority fully. The Uzbeks formed a powerful group in the nobility. They held important positions in eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Malwa. Although they had served the empire well by subduing the powerful Afghan groups in those areas, they had become arrogant and were defying the young ruler. Between 1561 and 1567, they broke out in rebellion several times, forcing Akbar to take the field against them. Each time, Akbar was induced to pardon them. When they again rebelled in 1565, Akbar was so exasperated that he vowed to make Jaunpur his capital till he had rooted them out. Meanwhile, a rebellion by the Mirzas, who were Timurids and were related to Akbar by marriage, threw the areas west of modern Uttar Pradesh into confusion. Encouraged by these rebellions, Akbar's half-brother Mirza Hakim, who had seized control of Kabul, advanced into Punjab and besieged Lahore. The Uzbek rebels formally proclaimed him their ruler. This was the most serious crisis Akbar had to face since Hemu's capture of Delhi. However, Akbar's grit and certain amount of luck enabled him to triumph. From Jaunpur, he marched to Lahore, forcing Hakim to retire. Meanwhile, the rebellion of the Mirzas was crushed, the Mirzas fleeing to Malwa and thence to Gujarat. Akbar marched back from Lahore to Jaunpur, crossing the river Yamuna near Allahabad at the height of the rainy season. He surprised the rebels led by Uzbek nobles and completely routed them 1567. The Uzbek leaders were killed in the battle, thus bringing their protracted rebellion to an end. All the rebellious nobles, including those among them who had been dreaming of independence, were cowed down. Akbar was now free to concentrate on the expansion of the empire. Thank you everyone for tuning in. In the next part, we'll start with early expansion of the empire from 1560 to 76. Thank you everyone for tuning in. All the best.